Hello and welcome back to your favorite podcast. It's your host, Bobbie of Petty Daydreams. So I wanted to update you guys on some changes I'm making to the podcast. So since the interviews usually run pretty long with guests, for weeks that I'm doing an interview with guests, I'm going to keep it just to the interview. So no advice and no hot takes section. I'm really sorry for this change. I know you guys really enjoy the advice and the hot takes, but this will just be a helpful way to minimize the length of the episodes and really put the spotlight on my guests. So I hope you enjoy this week's interview. It's a surprise set of guests. Yes, two. So one is Katie and one is Rachel, and they're Hotdoggers with Oscar Mayer. So they're driving the Wienermobile around. They're going to be here in Oklahoma City this week. So I reached out and asked if we could schedule an interview, and they agreed. So that's what we're going to be delving into today, and I hope you enjoy it. Obviously, they're going to be telling you about where they're going to be and how to get in contact with them. So I strongly encourage you to do so. But if you have any questions or comments on podcast or anything they've said, I'd love to connect you with them or even discuss something with you if you want to talk with me. So I hope you enjoy it again, and thanks for listening to this podcast. I appreciate your support week after week. If you're loving the podcast, go ahead and give me a review on Apple. Really helps with the charts and everything like that. And of course, I just love hearing that you enjoy this podcast. So let's get right into the interview. Okay, guys, now I have our two guests today. It was kind of a surprise. It's Relish Rachel and Ketchup Katie. They are two individuals who work with Oscar Mayer Craft Foods, and they are actually going to be in Oklahoma City this weekend. So I just want to introduce them and say, so Rachel and Katie, it's really great that you could come on the podcast today. How are you both doing?
Hello, we are both doing fantastic. Thank you so much for having us today.
Of course. I was really excited that we could make this work with your super busy schedule. So you're actually in Oklahoma City right now getting ready for a busy weekend of events.
Yes, correct. We have quite a few events coming up this weekend. Tonight we have Zoo Brews. That will be from 5 to 10 p.m. And tomorrow we will be spending our day with the Science Museum of Oklahoma City at Tinker at the Park. And then Sunday
morning, we will be at OSU OKC's campus for a Fair Food Festival from 10:30 to 12:30, and then we'll be at Chester's Pumpkin Patch from 1 to 3 p.m.
So a pretty packed schedule, so we're hoping everyone can come on out and find a time that works for you and say hello.
Yeah, and I'm going to condense down, so obviously they have a really packed schedule. I'm going to condense that all down and share it on my Instagram so that if you're like, well, I can't make this event, but I can make this event, I'll have that all laid out so you can go and see them, grab some merch, and just have some fun with them. So Zoo Brews, have you guys ever heard of that event before scheduling this weekend?
We have not, but they reached out to us, and we won't actually be inside of the zoo. We'll be outside of the zoo greeting guests as they come in, but apparently it's supposed to be pretty busy and pretty fun.
Yeah, that's one of the most anticipated events in Oklahoma City around this time of year. So that's really cool that you can be there, and you're really kind of going to make the big tour of the metro this weekend, it sounds like.
Yeah, pretty much. We're all over. We're excited. We really have been having a lot of fun in Oklahoma City so far.
And so where were you before you came to Oklahoma City?
We just came from Salt Lake City, so we spent 2 weeks there, and then it took us quite a while to get here. We drove for 2 days, so we're super excited to be here.
Yeah, I've made the drive from Oklahoma City to Salt Lake City before, but I actually stayed in Colorado before making the stop in Salt Lake. So that's
exactly what we did.
So what is your official role with Oscar Mayer? And then how did each of you decide you wanted to be part of the company and take on this big endeavor?
So our job title, we are called Hotdoggers. Basically what we do is we drive the Wienermobile across the country on a coast-to-coast weenie roast, going to events and doing a lot of like on-the-ground kind of marketing. We also do a lot of behind-the-scenes like media appearances and things like this that are really fun. But yeah, I'll let Rachel talk a little bit about how we got involved with it.
So Katie and I are recent college graduates. We graduated in May 2020, and this is our first real job, so it's very fun. And Oscar Mayer recruited 12 hot doggers across the country. So they actually came to Katie and my colleges, and I like to say that we cut the mustard to get this job. So we've really been relishing our time so far.
I really love your ability to put in as many puns as you can to our conversation. Was that something that was on the like job role or responsibilities?
Yeah, we went to Hot Dog High. We were recent graduates of Hot Dog High as well, and we learned buns and buns of puns there.
So what were your respective college majors?
Yeah, great question. So I have a degree in public relations and advertising and minors in business, international studies, and history.
And I have a degree in mass media communication with minors in history and Spanish.
That is really incredible. I mean, you both are very well-rounded in your backgrounds, it sounds like. Did you go to the same university, you said, or different universities?
We went to different universities. I went to the Pennsylvania State University.
And I went to the University of Missouri.
That's really cool. So what was the interview process like for becoming a hot dogger?
It was actually really, really fun. It's not a traditional interview experience in that there are multiple interviews and they're supposed to be kind of fun and kind of test like what you're like in a group setting, what you'd be like on camera and stuff like that. Our interviews were actually online because it was right when quarantine kind of started, but it was still a really fun process with like multiple days of interviewing and meeting our future coworkers.
That's really cool. I mean, this sounds like a really incredible first job to have after graduating. And then I'm connected with a lot of collegians because I'm an advisor to my old sorority. And it's just crazy. Like everything's kind of been unexpected, and especially entering like a very unstable job market. It's so awesome that you're having like a mostly positive experience after graduating from college.
Yeah, definitely. We are very, very proud, and we feel really lucky to be able to represent Oscar Mayer and to kind of have this opportunity of a lifetime.
So you graduated in May and got this job. When did you start traveling?
So first we had to do for 2 weeks of Hot Dog High, like we said, which is what we call our training up in Madison, Wisconsin. And then we started traveling. We got out on the road on July 26th. So tomorrow will be our 2-month anniversary of being on the road.
That's really cool. And so when did you first meet each other?
So Katie and I met the very first day of Hot Dog High. So we've only known each other for about 10 weeks now. So now we spend 24/7 together. So it's been going great. But yeah, we did not know each other before this job.
When did you find out that you were going to be paired together for this specific Wienermobile?
We found out on the first day of Hot Dog High, and it was kind of like a fun scavenger hunt reveal. But we actually will switch partners and regions midway through. So Rachel and I only have 4 months left together, which is very sad.
It's very sad, very sad.
When you guys, I guess, switch regions, how are like regions decided, and what is your current region?
So we are the South team. So we started a little west. I mean, we were in Idaho, Utah, Colorado, but we're heading down south. Our next market is actually San Antonio, Texas.
Okay.
But really, it's up to our bosses. I mean, there's a secret formula that they use. We don't really know what it is. We have no idea where we'll be next half, whether that's West Coast or East Coast, and we have no idea who our next partner will be. So it's definitely exciting. It keeps you on your toes, and we're looking forward to it.
That's really cool. It sounds like things are going like super well, and it sounded like a really fun process, like finding out who you're going to be paired with, and then like having so much like excitement in the process, and like getting to meet someone new and travel with somebody new.
Definitely. It's always a big deal to find out who your partner is going to be, and we like to say like there's so much hype surrounding it. So when you eventually find out your partner, it's such a special moment, and that's something I'll never forget.
What is it like living on the road, and then do you sleep in the Wienermobile?
That's a question that we get a lot, but we like to say that it's not a weenie bago. But yeah, a lot of people ask that. We actually stay in hotels.
So do you work directly for Oscar Mayer, or is it under the umbrella of Kraft Foods?
So Kraft Foods owns Oscar Mayer, but we are Oscar Mayer employees, as Hotdoggers, but then Kraft Heinz is like our parent company.
Okay. So I guess Oscar Mayer takes care of like all the logistics of like where you're going to go and where you're going to stay.
So our boss basically tells us where to go. I mean, we have some say in it, but at the end of the day, they tell us our schedule. But we are actually in charge of booking hotels, finding accommodation, and figuring out the events we're going to do. So going back to what Katie said, there's a lot of behind the scenes, and we kind of do a lot of the, I guess, not so publicized stuff that we're in charge of as well.
I mean, you're like working in tandem with your boss and everything like that, but it's neat to just hear kind of how, I want to say how the sausage gets made, but it's way too funny for me. So what is something people would be surprised to learn about the Wienermobile?
I think one thing people would be surprised to learn is that we've actually been on the roads for 84 years, about 84 years. We debuted in 1936 at the peak of the Great Depression, and we've been spreading smiles since then. I think a lot of people remember the Wienermobile when they were a kid back in the 60s and 70s, and they always say, oh, I saw the original, like this was around when I was a kid. But a lot of people don't know it's been around from even before when their grandparents were kids. So we have been around a while, and we have a really rich history.
So you said 84 years?
Yes, the Wienermobile turns 84 this year.
That is so cool. I mean, we're coming up almost on 100 in just a few more years then. What has it been like traveling the country during a pandemic?
Honestly, this year has given us a lot of opportunities to do a lot of smaller, like grassroots community-based events. So we've been able to, in past years, we'll go to festivals and parades and, conventions, stuff like that. But this year, we've been able to do a lot more small, fun things like birthday party drive-bys, nursing home visits. Today, we were at the Oklahoma Humane Society. So we've just been able to do a lot of things that we maybe haven't done in previous years. And so it's been really cool to, integrate ourselves into the community a little bit more than ever before.
That is really cool. I mean, I applaud you. I mean, when, you primarily visit big events and stuff like that. I mean, I saw you reaching out to a Facebook group to try and, see what locations were having events and stuff like that. You really get more tied into the community, it seems like. And then to be doing this during a pandemic, and you guys seem to do it with so much positivity, I just find that really incredible.
Absolutely. I think when we debuted in 1936, like I said, it was the peak of the Great Depression and everyone needed a smile. And I think the same can be said today. No one really needs a smile more than they do right now. So we are so proud to be able to do that this year.
And so what is like a typical event? Like, do you hand out merch? I mean, I think some people wonder if you're going to have hot dogs there. So how does that actually work during an event?
So honestly, you would be amazed at how many times people ask us per day if we have hot dogs. But no, we actually hand out our famous wiener whistles, which we've been giving out since 1952. So those are kind of like a collector's item at this point. So we'll hand out our wiener whistles. We have stickers and postcards, and we actually have baseball trading cards with our faces on them, which is also very fun. So we just hand out things, and honestly, people just want to ask us questions and take pictures. So that's like most of what we're doing when we're out there.
Yeah, I know a lot of people. I'm not surprised that like a lot of people ask you if you're going to have hot dogs. So tell me about the whistle. What makes this whistle so special?
So just like the Wienermobile, the whistle is rich in history. We started giving out whistles in 1952. And there's been a couple different versions throughout the years. Some special ones, like we have a Halloweeny whistle and we have a NASCAR whistle. But a lot of the parents come up to us and a lot of the older generations come up to us and they know all about the whistles. They know the Wiener song, our jingle, and nothing really brings a smile to their face quite like the whistles.
That's awesome. You've obviously been traveling on the road for a while. What has been your biggest takeaway, like living on the road, being on the road?
I think for me, at least, my biggest takeaway has been that, like, no matter where we are in the country, I think everyone can kind of find similarities and common ground, especially when it comes to seeing something as cool as the Wienermobile. You know, it makes everybody smile and laugh. And it's interesting to me how, like, no matter where we are, people ask the same questions. They have the same, like, interest in us and in the Wienermobile. And so it's been kind of cool to see that, like, no matter how different a city is, I guess human nature is kind of the same everywhere you go.
Did you guys travel frequently before you took on this role?
We did, I would say so. Katie and I both studied abroad our junior year of college. So I studied abroad in Paris. I think Katie was in Florence, correct, Katie?
I was indeed.
So we do have some traveling under our belt. And I think that really helped us apply for this job, talk about some of the experiences we have, and really get used to the lifestyle a lot easier.
So what makes you passionate about this role?
I think that this role is just so incredibly special because how often do you get to, you know, bring joy to people who you've never met and make strangers smile just because you're there, you know, sitting outside of a grocery store or sitting outside of a zoo. So for me, and I think for Rachel as well, it's just so incredibly special to see how, you know, people remember the Wienermobile and how it just makes them light up. And so that's been something that's been incredible for us on the road. We've had so many moments that we like to call zoom out moments where we're just like, oh my gosh, this is our life. Like, this is what we get to do every single day. And I could not ask for a better job.
Tell me more about zoom out moments. Is that something you guys came up with?
We did not come up with it, but the class before us, so the hotdogging class before us, trained us during Hot Dog High, and they kind of taught us about zoom out. They kind of came up with it. It's basically when you kind of pinch yourself and you say, wow, I cannot believe this is my job. So for example, we came from Salt Lake City and we stopped in Arches National Park, and I was riding in the Wienermobile with Katie alongside me, and we were passing the most incredible monuments, incredible like natural structures, and it was just crazy to think that this is our job and we get paid to make people happy, and everyone was smiling and beeping at us while we were driving through one of the most incredible national parks that our country has. And it's just moments like that when you realize that we are so lucky to have this job.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of like taking that idea and applying it to anything else. I mean, you don't have to be driving the Wienermobile to, I guess, kind of put some context to your life and realize, like, sometimes things are just really incredible and life itself is really beautiful.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
So do you guys have a favorite memory of your travels so far, or a place you'd really like to go back to in the future?
My personal favorite city that we visited has been Denver, Colorado. Rachel interned in Denver last summer, and I just have always had a fondness for it. I want to live out there someday. So we had a lot of incredible events there. But one that really stands out was this thing called Alpine Horizon Fest, and it was out by Pikes Peak. And basically what it was like car drifting and car racing, and we actually got to lead, be the pace car and lead a lap on the racetrack with all of the race cars following behind us. So that was probably one of the coolest moments of my entire life.
That sounds crazy to me. I mean, that's something you're going to be telling, like, if you choose to have kids, that's going to be you telling your kids and your grandkids that you were the pace car for a race.
Oh, definitely. Katie and I joke about that all the time. We're like, imagine telling our grandkids that we drove the Oscar Mayer Wienermobile around the country. Like, that will be us someday, and it's really cool to think about.
I mean, those are some memories. I mean, you're really going to cherish the rest of your life, it seems like.
Yeah, we think so too.
So in the future, like you mentioned, you someday want to live in Denver. Do you guys have any aspirations or goals for your future that you would be willing to share?
So this is only a 1-year tour. So after our year, I guess it's a little bit of a question mark. I really do have a passion for brand management. So I'd really like to go into brand management. I'm thinking about going to grad school. I would like to live in a big city, not sure where yet, but Denver definitely is on my list.
And then for me, I think, like I said, I want to move out to Colorado, and I want to work in sports and adventure media. So doing something potentially with like filmmaking of outdoor sports.
That is really awesome. I'm sure also this is going to be a great jumping off point during interviews to say that you drove the Oscar Mayer Wienermobile and you were a hot dogger.
Yeah, it's definitely something that's going to be kind of strange and stand out on our resume, considering only, I think, 450 people have ever driven the Wienermobile.
That's crazy. So how many teams are actually chosen? You said that people are partnered. I think you said it was maybe 12 other groups.
Yeah, so there are 6 Wienermobiles and 2 people per Wienermobile, so there are 12 Hotdoggers total.
That is so cool. And do any of the regions, I guess, get repeated, different Oscar Mayer crews?
So we do have 6 regions, and the regions will be the same next half, but we won't go to the same cities in one year. So say we're south now, we're going to San Antonio. We might not go to Houston this half, but the next half, maybe they'll go to Houston instead of us.
Oh, gotcha. That makes sense. So if somebody wants to connect with either of you, where can they find you, like online, Instagram, etc.?
So we actually have our own Oscar Mayer Instagrams, which have been really, really fun so far. So mine is Catching Up with Katie, spelled like ketchup, and then Rachel's is Relish Rachel. But you can also follow Oscar Mayer on Instagram and Wienermobile on Twitter.
Okay, that sounds really perfect. And then I'm going to get a list from you guys of all the places you're going to be this weekend and share that with people. But would you mind repeating where you're going to be here for the listeners?
Sure thing. So tonight we will be at the Oklahoma City Zoo for Zoo Brew from 5:30 until 9. And then tomorrow morning we will be starting at the Science Museum of Oklahoma at 11 a.m. and we'll later move on to Wheeler Park for Tinker in the Park until 4. And then Sunday morning we will be at the OSU OKC campus for a food truck festival from 10:30 to 12:30. And then we'll be at Chester's Pumpkin Patch from 1 till 3.
Okay, that sounds awesome. And to my listeners, I really encourage you to connect with them, figure out where they're going to be this weekend. You know, like they said, they bring cheer and fun and a little bit of lightheartedness to, you know, a kind of a year that can be difficult for a lot of people. And so I really encourage you to kind of follow them. And your story is just like so inspiring, just like, you know, recent college grads, you're now living life on the road 24/7. It just sounds really exciting. And I hope you guys will connect with them. And guys, it was really great to have you on. Thanks for coming on and talking with me and sharing a little bit about yourselves with my listeners.
Yeah, thank you again for having us. We really relished our time, and I hope everyone out there listening has a wienerful day.
So that was a really awesome interview with 2 incredible women. It's so cool hearing about all their adventures and stuff like that. And I just want to say again, please reach out to them. Please connect with them. That's what this is all about. And next week I will be back for a regularly scheduled episode where we have the advice section and the hot takes. So as always, guys, the music I use for my transitions and throughout the episode is Bright Side by Evan Schaefer. Thanks, Guy. Thanks so much. You may have noticed last week I didn't have an episode. I have been dealing with a lot of depression recently, and there's a lot going on around the world and in current events. So, you know, I just want to say, if you need a break, if you can't do your work anymore, you can't focus or anything like that, give yourself a break. Like, we can't be too hard on ourselves right now. And I think listening to Katie and Rachel, it was just interesting, you know, thinking about that idea, like Zoom moments, and that there's so much out there that can just, you know, life is really poignant and beautiful. And there are moments that you're just like, I'm so lucky to be alive right now. And although they apply it to how lucky they are to have their jobs, I really kind of took that away from the interview, and I really liked that. And I just like that they're out there spreading positivity and smiles and cheer in a time that's really difficult. So I'm sorry I didn't put up an episode last week. I hope this episode makes up for it. And as always, guys, just stay petty.